Alright everybody, diecastmania here and welcome back. Today we're reviewing the Ertl Prestige Collection 1/50th scale John Deere 870 P-tier hydraulic excavator. And on the back there's a nice image of the real machine, but unlike the past, no line drawing specs or anything. Something that Ertl has added to the bottom of the box is the recommended age for their different collections, as well as the scales that fall into those series. You have your contact information and you have the barcode / product number. So with the newer Ertl models, there is a window on the box similar to the other models on the market. Previously, there was just nothing there. It was completely open. So pulling the cardboard out, you can see that the model is secured to the inner packaging with zip ties on the bottom and clear plastic ties on the back. Alright, so this model was announced for 2022 by Ertl and was originally meant to be produced as the 870G. Now, between now and then, in late February 2022, John Deere and Hitachi formally dissolved their 33-year joint venture together, producing excavators. I believe the P-tier designation stems from the 2021 decision by John Deere, starting with their loader lineup, to do away with the traditional series designation, so the G, K, L, so on and so forth, and to instead go to the performance tierings. So they had the G model, which is similar to the Cat GC series base model. You have the P performance series with more technology, and then you'd had the X series with all the options added in. As of the time of the filming of this video, the excavators, some models retain the legacy G series, while others have had the P tier introduced. But anyway, back to the model. As of the release of this model, the retail price on this is anywhere from 75 to 80 US dollars. So if we're judging by size alone, I'd say you're getting a pretty decent deal. So here we'll start with an overview of the model. You can see it from all angles before diving deeper. Starting off with the detail, we'll look at the top of the model, and there's that fairly standard Ertl Prestige series opening engine compartment, which you can see that the Isuzu engine inside, it's just a dark piece of gray plastic, but the molding work is pretty decent. The rest of the upper structure detailing, like the panel lines, they're there. There's the walkways and the anti-slip texture. There's the swing motors. And a improvement from past Ertl models is the anti-slip texture is fully added throughout the model. So it's not just one or two pieces of it and the rest textureless decal work. With the rest of the model, we can see that there are actually more opening engine compartments. With this door at the back, we have access to the hydraulic system. Again, it's just a monolithic gray piece of plastic, no accent painting whatsoever. There is some detail on the back side of the door. And towards the front, we have this compartment over here. So when you close the doors, you can pretty clearly tell that there are opening compartments, though at least there are no real visible hinges. But here's one more shot at all the compartments. As a fairly standard detail, all the smaller vents on the left-hand side are fully pad printed on and not perforated, though on the right-hand side it is a little more disappointing. The vents just completely being printed on and not cast in whatsoever, unlike the older 470 and 450 models. If it meant removing one or two opening engine compartments to add that detailing, that probably would have been fine by me, though. To be fair, on an excavator model, this isn't really a side that you display it too often on, but it's just the relative lack of depth in this area and how flat it is on this model that kind of throws off the look a little bit. So this model, the decaling is pretty decent, no real complaints there. The cab has been improved. There is actual black accents and window trim on there. The handrails themselves are still the same oversized plastic, although they're more flexible this time around. The cab has an insert, which is pretty standard. There's work lights on the front. The catwalk itself actually has texture. So moving on to the rear of the Deere, we can see a pretty obvious seam line where the top of the counterweight meets the bottom. There's the rear view camera as well as the Deere and warning decals on the back of the counterweight. So moving on to the business end of the model, we have the bucket. It's a decent size, though it is not the best detailed. The teeth itself are pretty short and wear plating is pretty lacking. It doesn't really look like something you'd see commonly used in North America. Here are the rubber hydraulic lines in this model. They look decent, though they could be a little better. And another thing to address is the presence of unpainted rivets and those unfilled holes on the boom and stick. To begin our transition into the functionality of this model, we'll start with the tracks. They are metal link tracks and they roll fairly decently by hand, though they won't really roll on a smooth surface. They sit kind of loose on the model and there is no spring tensioner, so to speak of. They attempted to make it look like they modeled the tensioner, but if we look closer, we can see that the idler is just riveted on as usual for Ertl. And the tracks themselves are these relatively strange triple grouser pads, which really look out of place on a model of this size. Unfortunately, the body of the model rocks up and down on the undercarriage towards the front. Though, confusingly enough, the swing is actually pretty stiff in other positions on the model. From this angle, we can see another one of the major complaints I have about this model is that the undercarriage is pretty disproportionately short for a machine of this size. Granted, it is an 870 and not an 870 LC, though it just doesn't look right given the overall proportions as well as the configuration. So here it is with the Hitachi 870 by WSI, and you can see that it is quite a bit shorter. And now we're going to be moving on to the functionality of the boom, stick, and bucket of this model. So like any other excavator model, you can see the bucket curls out, curls in, stick curls out. That's your maximum reach. Stick and bucket curl in, that's about as compact as you can get it. Again, we have that rocking on the body. The model does dig deeper than recent Ertl models, but it still doesn't allow the cylinders to fully bottom out and obtain the maximum reach like other models on the market can. But on the contrast, we have probably way too much upward movement. So here is just a recap of the range of motion. And the cylinders on this model move relatively smoothly. So wrapping up the review, the Ertl 1/50th scale Deere 870P tier is a decent model for the price you're paying for it. With that in mind, it obviously isn't anywhere as near in terms of quality or detail with the similar Hitachi models like the 690, 870, and the upcoming 890. It is a case of you get what you pay for, and in this day and age, with the prices that models are reaching, it kind of is a shocker that anyone was able to deliver a 90-ton excavator 1/50th scale for this price range, but Ertl delivered. There are some flaws to this model, like the shorter than normal undercarriage, the large handrails, unpainted rivets, and those holes in the boom. But again, for the price point they were able to reach, there was a pretty decent attempt made, and there's just something simple about Ertl models that makes it a good starting point for customs or for entry-level collectors, and to frame it in the sense of what it really is. I'm honestly about as pleased with this model as I was with the 450 and the 470 over 10 years ago. So, standards have incrementally increased over time, and Ertl has or hasn't met some of those, but it is a good starting point, and it is something that fits within a certain price range pretty well. Just comparing the prices of the other Deere excavators in the Ertl Prestige series, like the 210G, the 470G, and 345G, this is by far the largest and most substantial model, and the prices are pretty close on them, so it is a pretty decent buy. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you all in the next video.